Hey everyone, welcome back to the One Shot Heroes channel. I'm Jackal Wolf. This episode, what we're going to do is we're going to do our very first one-shot tutorial. Since this is the first episode, I thought it would be a good opportunity to look at how to create a custom magic item. Now, depending on the resources you got available, you got a number of different ways of doing this. First up is going to be using our trusty DM's guide. This is a really handy tool to have, as it's going to cover almost everything you're going to need to know to do this. The second method is going to be by using DND Beyond. This is an online tool. It's got a lot of really cool features. I really like it because it's very visual. It comes in really handy for making videos. Now, both of these methods have their strengths and their weaknesses. It's really going to depend on what you're trying to do to figure out which one's going to be best for you. But before we get started, now would be a great time to hit that subscribe button, click on that notification bell. That way you're alerted every time we post a new video to this channel. Also, if you're enjoying this content and you want to help support, please introduce us to your D&D friends. We're a very small channel. Word of mouth is going to be our best method of growth. Also, feel free to share this video with your various social medias. Hashtag #OneShotHeroes. That is the number one, SHOTHEROES. Throw that in your tweet or somewhere in your message, and there's a good chance that we might actually be able to see it as well. Last thing I want to mention is don't forget to support your local game shop. They're a great resource for D&D content, as well as a great way to expand your community. But enough about that, let's get back to the video. So like I said, our goal this episode is to create ourselves a custom magic item. If all you're doing is trying to create something very simple, like to modify an existing magic item, or to just add a magical effect onto a standard item, all you're really going to need is your Dungeon Master's Guide. Now, there's a lot of really good information here. The section that you want to go to is page 284 and 285, which goes over modifying an item. The easiest way to invent a new item is to tweak an existing one. If a paladin uses a flail as her main weapon, you can change a Holy Avenger so that's a flail instead of a sword. You can turn a Ring of the Ram into a wand or a Cloak of Protection into a Circlet of Protection, all without altering an item's properties. So that's all very simple. Basically, find an existing magic item that's almost what you want, and then just change up some of the properties. So as a demonstration, we're going to kind of follow the example in the book. I've brought up a Holy Avenger on D&D Beyond. I'm using this as a visual tool. You can certainly get away with just using a pen and paper. You gain a +3 bonus to attack and damage rolls made with this magic weapon. When you hit a fiend or an undead with it, that creature takes an extra 2d10 radiant damage. While you hold the drawn sword, it creates an aura in a 10-foot radius around you. You and all creatures friendly to you in the aura have advantage on saving throws against spells and other magical effects. If you have 17 or more levels in the Paladin class, the radius of the aura increases to 30 feet. So if we're running a pen and paper campaign, we'd write down this description and then include the stats for the flail. So in this case, the flail is 1d8 bludgeoning damage. And there you go. As simple as that, you've got yourself a custom magic weapon. Now, that's all well and good for something very simple, especially if you're just running a pen and paper campaign. If you're running an online campaign, you can do the exact same thing in D&D Beyond. Under the collection tabs in the Create Magic Items, you'll get a Create Homebrew Item. Use an existing item as a template, which is basically what we did before. As an example, we can use the drop-down menu, find ourselves the Holy Avenger. If we pick one of them and then go Create, it brings up the creation screen with all of the information copied over. So again, this is very simple. What we're going to do is we're going to go change the name to Holy Avenger Flail. We're going to come over here to the base weapon. We're going to go click on Flail. And that's pretty much it for what we got to do. All the other information is going to stay exactly the same. So we're going to go hit Save Changes. And then we can go search for this in our Homebrew collection, or we can just hit the Holy Avenger Flail just back from the edit button. Now it's telling me that I can't share this with the community because it's too similar to an existing item, which is perfectly fine. If I was running my own campaign, this would not affect it. This is just saying that we can't share it to the wider community. We got to be a little bit more custom before we can do that. Now that basically covers how to make a simple magic item using an existing one. What we want to do now is do something a little bit more complex. From the Create Homebrew Item page, we're going to click on the Create from Scratch. Now we're back to the exact same screen we were at before, except everything is blank. So first thing we're going to do is we got to come up with a name for an item. So I'm going to assume that before you start this process, you've already got an idea for a magic item in mind. Now the idea that I got bouncing in my head that I want to make as an example is I would like to make a jetpack. Now I know that this is a fantasy game, but we're going to do this by combining magic with a piece of armor. So we're going to call it a breastplate of flight. Version, this is totally up to you. I am going to put version 1 in here, just in case I come back later on and I make some changes to it. I can kind of keep those in check. Rarity. Now, this is something that D&D Beyond doesn't do a very good job of explaining. To get a better explanation, we got to go back into our Dungeon Master's Guide. Over to the Creating a Magic Item section, there is a table on page 285 called Magic Item Power by Rarity. And basically it breaks it down by the max spell level as well as the max bonus. So as an example, a common item could have a first level spell. Uncommon would be a third level spell and then a max bonus of +1. A rare item would have a 6th level spell with a max bonus of +2. Very rare would be an 8th level spell with a max bonus of +3. And then the legendary would be a 9th level spell with a max bonus of +4. So if we look at the fly spell, we can see it is a 3rd level spell. You touch a willing creature, in this case it will be a worn item. The target gains a flying speed of 60 feet for the duration. When the spell ends, the target falls if it is still aloft unless it can stop the fall. So the important information here for us right now is that it is a 3rd level spell. So as per the DM guide, that makes this an uncommon item. Next up is the base item type. This is where we kind of narrow down the stats that are going to be used to create this item. Default is item. This would be if we were creating ourselves something like a rod, a scroll, a wand, or a ring. We could pick ourselves a weapon, which in the case of the Holy Avenger, we had to go and pick ourselves a flail. But for this example though, we're going to make this an armor piece. So base armor, we're going to pick a breastplate. Now we've got a couple of other options here. We've got a dex bonus. If your magic armor has a different max dexterity bonus than is typical for the armor of its type, choose that here. So we don't want to change any of the stats about the actual breastplate. So we're going to leave these ones blank. Depending on how complex your item is, this might be something you need to consider. Same thing with the strength requirements and the stealth check. Now the last thing here is the requires attunement. What Attunement does is it limits the number of magic items that a player can have active at any one time. So generally what I've seen with other magic items is that if it's just a simple item like a plus weapon, that all it's doing is adding a little bit of extra damage, a little bit of extra, chance to hit, it probably will not need Attunement. But if it's something very special that gives the player a unique ability, in this case like flight, this is something that's going to require an Attunement. Every player can have 3 magic items attuned to them. Now, Attunement description. Now, the other reason you might want to require Attunement is to keep an item limited to a certain class or race or some other requirement. In this case, as an example, we're going to limit its uses to by fighter. But we can certainly get more complex if we wanted. Now, as far as the description goes, you're only limited to your own imagination. You can write a great little story about the origin or how this was first used or where it came from, or just give a simple description of what the item does. So as a simple description, I've got Breastplate of Flight allows the wearer to cast the fly spell on themselves up to 3 times per long rest. Now to make things simple, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the description from the fly spell and then paste it into the description here, just so there's no confusion about what the spell entails. So you touch a willing creature, in this case, that's not going to apply. It's only going to be on the person that's wearing the item. So the wearer gains a flying speed of 60 feet for the duration. When the spell ends, the wearer falls if it is still aloft, unless it can stop the fall. Now, we're not done building this item yet, but D&D Beyond is making us create the magic item. Now, basically what it's done is that it's saved that item to my homebrew creation list. So similar to the flail, we can actually go back to the Breastplate of Flight and basically kind of see what it looks like in D&D Beyond. So armor, breastplate, uncommon, requires attunement by fighter. So we got to go back and fix that. I should just have fighter in there. Breastplate of Flight allows the wearer to cast a fly spell on themselves up to 3 times per long rest. The wearer gains a flying speed of 60 feet for the duration. When the spell ends, the wearer falls if it is still aloft unless it can stop the fall. Now we can leave this as is. There's enough information here for it to be used, but D&D Beyond does give us a couple of extra options to flesh out this item. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the edit button again. So now that the basic information is done, we can add some additional information to this item. So opening up that tab, we've got has charges. This is going to be a yes. Number of charges, we said 3. Charge reset condition, we're going to do a long rest. Charge reset description, charges reset on long rest. And then any other notes in here. This is probably where you would put notes about what happens if all the charges run out. Weight, we're going to leave it blank. That's going to default to the standard breastplate weight. Avatar, if we had a picture, we could throw it in here. I don't have anything prepared for it right now, but if you got a picture that looks kind of like your item, this would be the place you would put it. And then magic item tags. So what we want to do is we want to go through the drop-down list and look for anything that's going to apply to this item. You know, it's not a cursed item, doesn't really do any damage. It's not handwear, it's not headwear. It does affect the movement, so we'll select that one. And that's interesting because there is nothing else that really fits this. Modifiers, this would be if the breastplate gave us a magic modifier. Because this is armor, what we're going to do is we're going to take a bonus, and then we got to kind of choose between an armor class and an armored armor class. Now, because this is a worn item, we want to affect the armor class when it's being worn. So an armored armor class, there's no ability score that we got to worry about. There's no dice count, no dice type, but there is a fixed value. Let's do a +1. We won't do any additional bonus types. Details, here would where we would put, you know, against charmed, against evil, against good, and then the duration for that. So let's go hit save. Now, let's go take a look at the conditions. Now, this is not going to matter for this particular item, but if there was a particular condition that we wanted to apply or remove or suppress, this is where we would select it in here. The duration that it would affect for, the duration unit. So is it per round, per minute, per hour, day, special, until dispelled, and then any sort of additional details in there. Now, it's not going to matter, so I'm just going to cancel out of that. So let's start with the spells because we already know that we're going to add the flight spell. So spell name, we've got a drop-down list. We're going to go find the fly spell. There you go. We're going to click fly. Min-max spell charges. In that case, we're going to go 1 to 3. Now, next up is the save DC. This is sort of a passive spell. There is no save DC, so we can leave this blank. If this was an attack spell, you'd have to put the save DC in there. Cast at spell level, we're going to put 3. If the spell had different effects at higher levels, this is something that you'd want to have set up. Now, details, other important items. I don't think we got anything else we need in here. All the other info was already in our description. So I'm going to go hit save. And before I forget, we're going to go back into the basic information and we're going to fix that attunement description. And let's just capitalize that for the fighter. So that's pretty much it for creating the item. We're going to hit save change. We can flip back to the breastplate of flight. And this gives just a general description. If we really want to see all the details of this item, we've got to add it to an actual character. So I've just gone and created ourselves a really quick human fighter. One thing that you got to remember to do is under character settings, make sure homebrew content is clicked on. But then we're going to go over to the inventory. We're going to go add equipment. We're going to look for breastplate of flight. There you go, breastplate of flight. We're going to add that in. Medium armor, breastplate, 3 charges, AC of 14. We're going to go equip that. You can see our armor class went from 12 to 14. If we actually click on the item in our inventory, it brings up all the information. So we've got our charges. We can keep track of how many times we use flight here. We've got the fly spell, so we can click on that. It brings up all the descriptions. You can even cast it from here. We got charge of 3. And there you go. We have now created ourselves the breastplate of flight. Those are 2 different ways to create yourself a custom item, either using the Dungeon Master's Guide or using D&D Beyond. But that's going to be it. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.